Here's something nobody wants to admit: that person who crushed your soul, the one you're still checking their Instagram at 2 a.m. You're not actually missing them. You're mourning a version of yourself that died the moment you started pretending to be someone else just to keep them around. And before you scroll away thinking this is another "just move on" lecture, let me tell you something that's going to sting. What you call love might actually be the most sophisticated form of self-destruction you've ever created. We're about to dive deep into why your brain keeps pulling you back to people who treat you like garbage. And trust me, the answer isn't what you think. If you're ready to stop being a prisoner to your own emotions, hit that subscribe button, because what we're exploring today will either set you free or make you incredibly uncomfortable. Probably both. Let's start with a question that's going to expose everything. Why do you keep choosing people who are emotionally unavailable? And don't give me that "I just have bad luck" nonsense. There's something happening in your unconscious mind that's way more calculated than you realize. You know what's fascinating? Every time you fall for someone who can't give you what you need, you're actually following a script written by wounds you don't even remember getting. It's like your psyche has this twisted GPS that keeps routing you toward familiar pain, because at least familiar pain feels like home. Carl Jung figured this out decades ago. He said we don't fall in love with people, we fall in love with missing pieces of ourselves that we project onto them. Think about it. That person you can't forget, they probably embodied something you desperately wanted to feel about yourself. Confidence, mystery, independence, power. You saw in them what you couldn't access in you. But here's where it gets twisted. When you project your unlived life onto someone else, you're essentially handing them the keys to your emotional prison. Every text they don't return becomes evidence that you're not worthy. Every time they pull away, your internal critic gets louder, whispering that you're too much, not enough, fundamentally broken. And then you do something that breaks my heart every time I see it. You start shrinking. You dim your personality, silence your needs, abandon your boundaries, all in the desperate hope that if you become small enough, quiet enough, convenient enough, they'll finally choose you. But they won't, because you're not choosing you. Let me tell you what's really happening when you can't let go. You're not fighting for love. You're fighting against the terror of facing yourself without the distraction of their drama. Because when the chaos stops, when your phone isn't buzzing with their mixed signals, you're forced to sit with the most terrifying question of all: who are you when you're not trying to earn someone's affection? This is where most people panic and run back to the toxic cycle, because discovering who you are beneath all that people-pleasing, that's the scariest journey you'll ever take. It means acknowledging that you've been living as a supporting character in your own life story. Jung called this shadow work, facing the parts of yourself you've been hiding, even from yourself. And here's what's going to blow your mind. Those toxic people you keep attracting, they're mirrors showing you exactly what you're not willing to confront about yourself. Are you drawn to narcissists? Maybe because you've suppressed your own need to be seen and heard. Do you fall for emotional manipulators? Perhaps because you've never learned healthy ways to get your needs met. Attracted to people who can't commit? Could be because commitment to yourself feels impossible. The pattern isn't random. It's your unconscious mind's way of forcing you to deal with unfinished business. And it will keep creating the same scenario with different actors until you finally get the message. But here's what nobody tells you about breaking these patterns. It's not about finding someone better. It's about becoming someone who wouldn't tolerate being treated poorly in the first place. It's about developing such a strong relationship with yourself that other people's approval becomes nice to have, not essential for survival. You want to know the real reason you can't move on? Because moving on would require you to admit that you've been abandoning yourself for years. Every time you ignored your intuition, silenced your voice, or stayed in situations that made you feel small, you were betraying your own soul. And that betrayal cuts deeper than anything anyone else could do to you. The anxiety you feel when they don't text back. That's not about them. That's your authentic self screaming at you to stop giving your power away. That tightness in your chest when they're cold and distant. That's your soul begging you to remember that you're worth more than crumbs of attention. Your nervous system is literally trying to save you from yourself. But instead of listening, you interpret these signals as evidence that you need them more. You've got it backwards. The anxiety isn't telling you to hold on tighter. It's telling you to let go and come home to yourself. Here's something that might shock you. That person who hurt you, they were probably just as unconscious as you were. They were likely acting out their own unhealed wounds, their own shadow material, their own desperate attempts to feel whole. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it puts it in perspective. You weren't in a relationship. You were in a mutual projection screen where two wounded people tried to heal through each other instead of doing their own inner work. And now you're stuck in what Jung called the eternal return, repeating the same psychological patterns until you finally wake up and choose differently. But choosing differently isn't about finding someone who treats you better. It's about treating yourself better. You want to break the cycle. Start by getting brutally honest about what you've been avoiding. What parts of yourself have you rejected in order to be acceptable? What dreams did you abandon to keep the peace? What truths have you been afraid to speak because you might lose someone's approval? Every time you sacrifice your authenticity for someone else's comfort, you're reinforcing the pattern that keeps you trapped. You're training yourself to believe that love requires self-betrayal. But real love, the kind that actually nourishes your soul, requires the opposite. It requires you to be so genuinely yourself that only people who can handle your truth stick around. I know this sounds terrifying, because if you stop pretending to be who others want you to be, some people will leave. And that thought makes you want to grab your phone and text that person who treats you like an option, just to feel connected to something, anything, that feels like love. But what if I told you that the people who leave when you start honoring yourself weren't really there for you anyway? They were there for the version of you that made them comfortable. And keeping those people around comes at the cost of your own soul. This is where the real work begins. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are instead of who you think you should be. It means integrating all the parts of yourself you've been hiding. The angry part, the needy part, the powerful part, the vulnerable part. All of it. When you start this process, something magical happens. You stop being desperate for other people's validation because you're finally giving yourself the acceptance you've been craving. You stop tolerating poor treatment because you know your worth isn't up for negotiation. You stop chasing people who are running away because you're too busy building a life you don't want to escape from. And here's the beautiful irony. The moment you stop needing someone to complete you, you become capable of experiencing real intimacy. Because you're no longer bringing an empty cup to the relationship, desperately hoping someone else will fill it. You're bringing your wholeness and sharing it with someone who's doing the same. But let's be real about what this journey looks like. It's not a smooth, upward trajectory. There will be days when you feel like you're drowning in your own emotions. Times when the loneliness feels so intense you'll want to call that person who broke your heart, just to feel something familiar. Moments when you'll question whether all this self-development stuff is just elaborate self-torture. Those moments are not setbacks. They're part of the process. Your psyche is literally rewiring itself, and that takes time. You're dismantling patterns that have been running your life for years, maybe decades. Of course, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but here's what you need to remember during those dark nights of the soul. The pain you're feeling isn't evidence that you're doing something wrong. It's evidence that you're finally doing something right. You're choosing yourself over familiar dysfunction. You're picking growth over comfort. You're trading the known hell for the unknown possibility of heaven. And that unknown, that's where your real life is waiting for you. The life where you don't need to perform for love. where your worth isn't determined by someone else's mood, where you can breathe deeply because you're not constantly monitoring someone else's emotional temperature to determine how you should feel about yourself. This journey isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. It's about stripping away all the masks and personas you've created to survive and remembering who you were before the world taught you that you weren't enough. That person is still in there, buried under years of conditioning, trauma responses, and survival strategies, but still there, still whole, still worthy of love, especially your own. So here's my challenge for you. For the next week, every time you feel the urge to reach out to someone who consistently makes you feel bad about yourself, reach inward instead. Ask yourself what you're really seeking: connection, validation, distraction from your own growth. Then see if you can give yourself what you're looking for. If you want to feel connected, connect with a friend who actually sees and values you. If you want validation, look in the mirror and speak to yourself the way you would to someone you love. If you want distraction, get honest about what you're avoiding and take one small step toward facing it. This isn't about becoming cold or closed off. It's about becoming discerning. It's about developing such a clear sense of who you are that you can instantly recognize when someone or something is pulling you away from your center. And listen, if what I'm saying is hitting you in the chest, if you're feeling that mixture of recognition and terror that comes with hearing a truth you've been avoiding, that's your soul saying yes. That's your deeper wisdom confirming what your heart already knows. It's time to stop abandoning yourself for people who don't see your value. Leave a comment below and tell me one thing you're ready to stop tolerating in your relationships. Don't overthink it. Just write the first thing that comes to mind, because naming it is the first step to changing it. And if this resonates with you, make sure you like this video and subscribe, because we're going deep into topics that most people are afraid to explore. Next week, we're talking about why your childhood wounds are still running your adult relationships and what you can do about it. Remember, you're not broken for struggling with this. You're human. And being human means you get to choose every single day whether you're going to live from your wounds or from your wisdom. Today feels like a good day to choose wisdom. Your future self is counting on the choices you make right now. Don't let them down.